Hey there, how are you today? My name is Dana Damara, and you have landed on Astrocast. This is your new moon report for the new moon in Leo coming up on August 16th at 2:38 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, a couple things I want to say for those of you who are new to this podcast, and also those of you who aren't new to this podcast. As a reminder, new moons are always a moment in time for new beginnings. This is the whole reason why I started doing these podcasts and these forecasts, was because I figured out that every new moon we have an opportunity to hit the reset button. And it's such a beautiful thing to remember, because I think sometimes we're so conditioned to work on, the Gregorian calendar that starts January 1st and ends December 31st. We set, our intentions for the year. By March, we're totally thrown off balance. We've forgotten where we're going, and we kind of bumble around for the rest of the year. But when we start to tap into our natural way of being, which is aligning ourselves with the phases of the moon, we remember that we have 13 times a year to realign ourselves. And a couple things I want to say about new moons as well. The energy before the new moon, a few days before, a few days after, same goes for the full moon, is really when the energy is super strong. And I will also say that it's not like as soon as that new moon happens, now all of a sudden the energy's over. Like, it goes in waves, right? So I want you to understand that as I kind of talk through the energy that we're experiencing now. The other thing I want to say as a reminder is that all of these readings that I offer up are a generalization around what's going on in the sky. So if we look up in the sky, if I look up in the sky and I take all the aspects and all the transits into consideration, I can, create my story on what is going on astrologically. Now, how that lands with you is going to completely depend upon how this energy kind of matches up to your chart, your natal chart. So as I read through this, if something resonates, yay. If something doesn't resonate, hey, it's okay. But I will say, if you've never had your astrological chart read, my invitation to you is to do it, because it's a blueprint of, what was going on the second you were born. And it really does give you a little bit of insight as to kind of where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it, all of it, right? So with that, I want to talk about the new moon. Okay. So again, this new moon happens this week, Wednesday, August 16th at 2:38 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay. Now I want to just pull up the chart, because I find that when I pull up the chart, everything just makes a lot more sense. And so I'm going to do that. All right, cool. Here we go. So first thing I want to say is the reason why we have a new moon, for those of you who don't know, is because the sun and the moon are conjunct each other. So they're conjunct here. You see them together down here at the bottom at 23 degrees in Leo. That's why we have a new moon in Leo. So if you were to look up into the sky, you wouldn't be able to see the moon, because the sun and the moon are conjuncting each other. They're at the same degree. Now, we also have, it's highlighted, we also have Venus sitting there in Leo. Now, it's not, Venus isn't completely conjunct, but it's close enough to actually have an impact on the energy of this new moon. Yeah, I think I'll just keep going with Venus. Let's just go with Venus. So because Venus, first of all, Venus is still in retrograde. Venus is in retrograde, but it also, I'll just say she is also just past Cazimi, Venus Cazimi, which is when Venus is completely conjunct the sun. So as we, I'll stop share for a second. As a planet goes retrograde, we'll just use Venus, for example, and you see it in Mercury, see it, anyways, Venus Cazimi. Okay, I could just go off on so many tangents. Venus Cazimi is when a planet goes retrograde. It's going retrograde, going retrograde, or going retrograde, going retrograde. And So it's moving in one direction, and then it hits the sun. Not really hits it, but you know what I mean? It's at the same degree, right? So it gets illuminated. And when Venus hits its cazimi in the heart of the sun, basically it's the halfway point of Venus retrograde. Okay. Now, Venus, guys, if you haven't watched the Venus retrograde podcast on Astrocast, go back and watch it. I'll give you a snippet though. Venus is all about love, money, our finances, how we create financial flow. Venus is also about what we value and how we value ourselves, our self-worth, how we beautify ourselves, our surroundings. So when Venus goes into retrograde, any planet goes into retrograde, but in this particular moment, when Venus goes into retrograde, it is a time for you to pay attention to those aspects of your life. Now, depending upon where Venus is in your chart is going to tell you where to put your focus. Like it's going to pinpoint, right? Because Venus is in, I'm going to share my screen. Because Venus is in Leo, this is about all the things I just mentioned, plus all the attributes of Leo. So we have courage, leadership, risk-taking, love, reliability, loyalty, all the things Leo. So not only are you talking about a new moon in Leo, you're talking about Venus conjuncting the new moon, which means it's amplifying Venus energy, and it's all in Leo. So because we have this powerful energy in the sign of Leo, you know, it's going to amplify all of those energies, creativity, courageousness, all of it. Now, I'm going to move on just a little bit here, and I want to talk a little bit about this guy up here, Uranus. Now, Uranus is making an exact square to the new moon. Uranus is actually doing a few things here, but let's just talk about the fact that it's making a complete square to the new moon. Now, Uranus is all about liberation, freedom, higher mind thinking, inspirational thoughts. You know, think of Mercury as the lower mind. Mercury is like, what am I going to do day to day, right? And Uranus is like those inspirational thoughts coming through. Now, Uranus is doing a couple things. First of all, Uranus is squaring the sun and the moon, which I'll go over in a second. And then it's also trining Mars. You see that? Mars is down there. And then it's also trining Pluto. Good times. It's also sextiling Neptune. So Uranus is super active in this new moon. So what I wanted to say, and I agree with a couple of my colleagues on this, is that with this new moon, as much simplicity as we can create in our life, the better, because Uranus is going to create volatility. Uranus is, if we think of Saturn as the planet of rules and restrictions and structures and the Lord of karma and, you know, make sure you do this, think of Uranus as kind of like wiping the slate clean and being like, I don't want to do that, right? So Uranus is going to be that lightning bolt that's going to liberate you from things that don't align with your value or how you value yourself. Uranus is going to liberate you from maybe ways that you think about your own value and relationships that you're in. Venus is all about relationships. Uranus is going to liberate you from anything that's going on for you that is just not on your path. And because it happens at the new moon, it's kind of a big deal. Now, the fact that Mars, let me share this screen again. The fact that Mars down here is actually trining Uranus, okay? With Mars trining Uranus, Mars is the igniter, the amplifier. Mars is like, let's go, let's do this, you know? And I have to say, I'm actually really grateful that Mars isn't in Leo right now, because that would just amplify that fiery energy. Mars is in Virgo, and it's actually trining Uranus. It's also trining Pluto. So it's making that beautiful blue triangle that you can't really miss, right? And so Mars actually can support a little alleviation of this potentially volatile energy. But it's also, Mars is also going to push you a little bit. And Mars, the fact that Mars is so close to Mercury, Mars and Mercury together, Mercury is the communicator, Mercury is the messenger, Mercury is the lower mind. This is like speedy thoughts, quick decisions, responding quickly. Is this on my path? Is this not on my path? Now, the only problem with that is that Neptune is right across from Mars and Mercury. So Neptune's going to pull in a little bit of illusion, a little bit of delusion, a little bit of fantasy, right? So understanding, and I have to say, I'm talking to a lot of clients about this right now. Understanding what's true for you is probably the most important thing you can do right now. And when I mean what's true for you, I don't mean what's true up here. I mean what's true here in the heart. Remember, Leo. So dispelling illusion about who you think you are, what you think you're worth, the people in your life that maybe you've had a circle of friends that you've had, or maybe they don't say a circle. Let's just say you have a circle of friends, and maybe there's like one or two people in that circle where you've always been a little off. That little off is going to be amplified. It's going to be so clear, but it's going to take a hot little minute to see it. Why? Because Venus is in retrograde. And I'm also going to tell you why, what is also in retrograde, right? So not only do we have Venus in retrograde, but we also have Saturn, we also have Neptune, we also have Pluto, and we also have Chiron. Okay, so it's a lot of planets in retrograde. So that means there's some quote unquote backward energy happening. Okay. I think one of the biggest things we can ask ourselves is when we have this type of potentially volatile energy with Uranus and with Mars, is to simplify our life, to really whittle down like what's really important to me right now. What are 3 things I can focus on for the next lunar cycle? What do I want to focus on? And pick those things and just stick to them and just be in that mode. This is going to be a new moon that activates a lot of change. It's going to activate change. It's going to activate a shift in the way you think and the way you perceive yourself in this world and how you see others in this world. It's going to shift the way you maybe plan your day every day or do your work or whatever it is that you do. You know, this is a really big new moon to focus on you and how you're showing up in relationship or how you're showing up in the world, and asking yourself, is this in alignment? Is this still in alignment with who I am? Or am I shifting the way I am or the way I think? Which, if you're even questioning that, the answer is yes, right? Because Venus Cazimi was on the 13th, you know, things that maybe you've been a little confused about will start to come a little clearer. My invitation to you is to not hurry. My invitation to you is to actually inquiry and keep cleaning things out. And closets, drawers, whatever, but also the mind. We did a breathwork session yesterday in San Francisco, and before I left, I thought to myself, I do this breathwork at least twice a week. Sometimes once. If I'm traveling, I might just get a really good breathwork session in once a week. And I said to myself, after holding space for all these people in the studio and watching physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, seeing the shift, I was like, Dana, girl, you are going to go home and you are going to do that practice for this whole lunar cycle every day. Every day, every day, every day. because it's work, it's hard. And I heard myself saying, you guys, this is hard. If it wasn't hard, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I thought, oh, that was so for me. That message was for me. It's not just for them, it's for me. And so I think sometimes, and maybe this resonates or not, but sometimes we kind of put our energy in all these different places, or things start to shift. The ground beneath us starts to shift. And we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Simplify, right? For me, it's going to be breath work every day. It's going to be walking every day, journaling every day, just focusing on my lane, at least for this next lunar cycle. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? And it's a beautiful time to reset your compass and say to yourself, which way am I going to point? Where do I want to put my focus? And then just no hard and fast commitments into a path. It's more like making a commitment to simplify what you do every day, so that you can get clear, if that makes sense. I'm going to share my screen one more time. I feel like I have something else I need to share. Maybe not. Talked about Mercury, Mars. I talked about Uranus. I think that's, I know. I knew there was one more thing. Okay, so not on this chart, you can't see it. It's just not on this version. But if I had the expanded version, we would see it. But Black Moon Lilith. Now, Black Moon Lilith is the dark feminine energy. Okay. Black Moon Lilith, there's a whole story around Black Moon Lilith. Maybe I'll do a recording about it. But Black Moon Lilith will bubble up that feminine energy around maybe where we're stuck in our old ways of being when it comes to our self-worth. Or relationships will show up that are pushing us into standing up for who we are, what we deserve, what we want. Black Moon Lilith could also show up as negative thinking and your own negative thinking. And then the gift in that is you noticing and saying, that's not even true, right? So Black Moon Lilith is that dark feminine energy that wants you to know who you are and stop settling for less. And I should say this too, because again, I talk to a lot of clients about this, and to myself. We don't, it's not like all the moments before we were just settling. It's more like you're moving into a place of a up-leveled version of yourself, and your clothes or your, whatever doesn't fit anymore. You're just a different version. And so, let this new moon be about committing to your practices that bring you back to the heart, that simplify your life so that you can hear what's next. Because come October, we're going to have another eclipse, and then things are going to shift again. So right now, I want you to focus on, what do I want? What do I value? What's important to me? What 3 things can I focus on for this next new moon that have to do with simplifying my life so that I can hear the messages that are trying to come through? So it's really important. Okay. So I hope this helps. It's a big new moon. If you want me to read your chart, I'm happy to do it. Love it. I love looking at people's charts. The way to get a hold of me to do that is just to go to danademaro.com. And then if you go up at the top, it'll say work with Dana. And the first little drop down is astrology readings. If you can't find it for whatever reason, just shoot me an email at dana@danademaro.com, and I'll absolutely send info over. Would love to do this with you. I feel like, hello, mid-August. What happened? September, October, November, December. What's happening? This year is, for me, it just feels like it's flown by. So let's, recalibrate, realign, and kind of revitalize this beautiful vessel of yours. Yeah. So I want to say thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful for you. And again, reach out to me anytime. Have such a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.